Okay, so today I'm talking about working with tenants. At the beginning of a lot of agents' real estate career, they tend to come across renters that are looking to either get into a single family home, an apartment, a townhome, a condo, and us as agents can help with all of that. There is some ways to do it strategically and to make it worth the time, but at the end of the day, you want to remember that this business is a relationship business. So, working with tenants a lot of times is really about that relationship. A tenant may end up buying in a year, or so they may have just moved to Atlanta, so it may be worth working with them for that. Or you don't want to forget that it's not always about them. You could help a tenant that refers you to a buyer or a seller or another tenant. It's really about fostering these relationships and showing your value and coming from contribution. The big thing when working with tenants is how do we get paid as agents? Um, you know, there is compensation that listing agents and management companies are providing and apartment complexes if we bring tenants that sign a lease. So there is that compensation tends to be pretty low. So it can be anywhere from a couple $100 to 20% of 1 month's rent. Those are kind of common amounts. But you have to remember that working at a brokerage, you're going to have to pay a percentage to the brokerage. You're also going to have to pay taxes on that income, and you got to pay for gas in the car. So for 200 or 300 bucks, it may not be worth helping a tenant. However, what I suggest doing is you charge that tenant a fee. People that want your help and need your help have no problem paying it. So, what we do is we will charge a fee and figure out what that is for you. When I was working with tenants, I would charge anywhere from $800 to $1,000. But the key is the tenant only pays me the difference between what I receive from the management company or the listing agent as compensation and my total fee of $1,000. So if the management company is paying $600 for bringing a tenant, then the tenant would only owe me $400. If they're paying $400, then they would owe me $600. So they would just owe me that difference. And again, people that need help and that want your assistance will have no problem paying this. The key is you just have to show your value. So what I say to a tenant who would like my assistance is, I do charge a fee because this is my job and I'd love to help you, but I do have to pay a split to my office. I've got to pay a third in taxes, and I also have to pay to put gas in my car to take you to see these properties. So for some of them that are only offering $200 or $300 in compensation, unfortunately, it's not enough money for me to be able to assist you. However, what we can do and what I do is I charge a fee, and that fee is $1,000. You only owe me the difference between what the management company or the owner or the listing agent pays as my compensation and my total fee. Again, if they pay $600, you would only owe me $400 as a tenant. If they pay $300, you would only owe me $700 as a tenant. So you're just paying that difference. And what I can do before we go see properties, I can reach out to the listing agent or the management company and see how much compensation they're paying so that you are fully aware on the front end. And what I'm going to do for you is I am going to search for properties. I'm going to make sure those properties are available and that they have no pending applications, because a lot of these management companies will take two, three, four applications, and they take an application fee of like $150 to $200, and they may give the unit or the property to tenant number two, and your tenant three, they don't refund you that money. So I've had clients that have lost a lot of money in that application process. So it's really important that I do the work up front to reach out and ensure that there's no pending applications and that property is still available. I'll also take you to see the properties. I will reach out and find out what the application process is, what the rental requirements are, and I'm going to help you with that application. I'll also help with any negotiations if I can, get you a discount or get something extra for you. And last, I'm going to review that lease for you so that you fully understand what you're signing. Okay, so that is the value add. What you need to do is you need to have a tenant sign a tenant brokerage agreement. That is GAR form F134, and that lays out the compensation so that it's clear. And just so it's clear, compensation is always negotiable, but we want to lay that out up front. And in order to go show a property, you do have to have the tenant brokerage agreement signed beforehand. So, where do we search for properties? The most common place. Well, let me backtrack 1 second. I just laid out what the value add is, but what I want you to understand as an agent helping a tenant is you want to do as much work as possible from your computer. You don't want to get into the car and go see these properties until you know that they're available, that what the rental requirements are, and what the application process is, and that there's no pending applicants because you don't want to waste time for going all over the place, driving all over the place if someone really doesn't qualify. What we can ask tenants on the front end, and we should make tenants aware of, is you are going to be subject to a credit and background check. Do you see that being an issue? I don't need the details of their credit, and I'm not looking for that. And I don't need to know really whatever would come up on a background check, but I lay that out and I make it clear up front that they will be subject to that when applying to, I would say, 99% of the properties in the metro Atlanta area that are renting. I haven't really seen any that don't do a background and credit check, but that is something to ask on the front end. And usually tenants will be aware if there is an issue there. Um, if they have some kind of issue or they know that there's maybe a credit issue or a background check issue, what you can do to try to help them is, again, doing as much work from the computer as possible and picking up that phone and calling these management companies and listing agents and being like, hey, I got a unique situation. Is there any way we could work this out? Their credit's not great, but they could pay 3 or 4 months up front. That might make a difference and someone might be open to renting to them. So again, now where do we find properties for rent? The first thing that I want to mention is we do not use Zillow. We do not use Trulia.com. We use none of those because there are scams out there. There are people that are posing as landlords and taking people's uh, deposits and first month's rent and then ghosting them. We actually had that happen to someone in our office last year. And so we are advising to only help people and search for properties and show properties that are listed by a management company and or a brokerage because there is some protection there and you know that it's more likely to be legit. And it should be because it's listed with a reputable company that needs a real estate license to list those properties. But that is important. You don't want your tenant to lose that money. And unfortunately, we had someone lose over $2,000 from a scammer on Zillow. So just be aware. So as I said, we would start our search on the MLS. Let me share my screen. Okay, so on FMLS, you would go to search residential lease. This is where you're going to be searching for rental properties. It usually will show maybe the application process. Oops. Oops. Sorry. It's just wanted to show you what the screen looks like when you find one. So here's a property that's for rent. It's got all the information here, and it usually, please use GAR form for the application. And this one is actually showing on the FMLS what the compensation is. So it just depends. Most of them do not, I would say, but you can reach out to the agent or the management company before showing or at any time and ask if they are offering buyer agent compensation. Okay, so that's the first place that you can look. You can also, there is this company called ProMove. ProMove is really focused on apartments. They have a relationship with a lot of apartment complexes, and the apartment complexes are offering compensation to agents if you bring a tenant. The cool part about ProMove is that you don't even have to go show the properties if you do not want. You can make an account here as an agent. You can serve a client yourself, or you can refer a client to ProMove and they will pay you a referral fee. I'm not fully sure the amount of that, but it's something that you can look into by reaching out to ProMove. If you want to serve the client yourself, here, I'll just show you an example. Oops. One of this thing. So let's just say Atlanta, max rent 3,000, and we want 1 to 2 bedroom. They have pretty much a MLS on here for apartment complexes. And the cool part about this is that it shows the compensation that is being offered for bringing a tenant. Additionally, as I said, you do not have to bring or go show the properties. Now, I think that's a good value add and a good relationship piece, but you do not have to. You can set them up with a showing. You just have to ensure that you register that tenant with um with ProMove and with under your name. So let's see. So what you would do is there is a button. I'm going to show you once it comes up. But I would call the apartment complex and say, hey, I have a client, John Smith, who would like to come see some units. I am wanted to register them. Oops. Let me try again. I wanted to register them under ProMove and myself. Can I do that? Can they come and see it? And will there be compensation offered through ProMove? So you do want to ensure that you register them. Let me see if this is going to work. Let me try. Okay, so now that I've got this working, sorry about that. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is what the portal looks like, and you can see co-op or compensation here. It's it's significant. My understanding is that ProMove receives 50% of 1 month's rent and then shares half of that with an agent if the agent is the one that secured that tenant in there. The cool part is once you find a property for your tenant, one, you can send it to them, but also you can register the client through this portal. It brings up a link to fill out, an email to send to them, but I would also go the extra step and call to ensure that they're registered under ProMove and your name, because if they are not registered, then there can be an issue with you getting paid. Additionally, you want to ensure you make the tenant aware that they should bring up your name and ProMove when they go to see the community. But this is another great way to help with building those relationships, to help tenants that want to rent apartments get into a place. Um, Okay. So that is where we do the majority of our searching. You can search on Georgia MLS as well, but ProMove and FMLS are a great resource. And then you can set up showings to take them if you're going the FMLS route. If you're going ProMove, again, you do not have to show those clients. You just have to set them up and register them under your name to receive compensation. So this can be a great way to assist. The last thing is I just want to remind you, do as much work as you can from your desk. Ensuring that those properties are available, seeing what the rental requirements are, and then making sure that they don't have any pending applications. You do not want to waste your time going to properties that your tenant is not going to be able to live in. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope this shows you that working with tenants can be a great way to jumpstart your business, make some money, add value, and foster relationships.